Have you ever really thought about the power of a promise? We're about to journey into an ancient rulebook, Numbers 30, that treats promises with deadly seriousness. It's all about the law of the vow, and trust me, it's way more fascinating than it sounds. Now, you'd think a promise is a promise, right? Simple. But this chapter starts with a really provocative idea. Your word is your bond, but that bond isn't always absolute. It sets up this incredible system of checks and balances where your family, your social standing can actually override a sacred oath. So, before we get into all the exceptions and the drama, we have to start with the baseline, the foundational rule. This is the bedrock for everything else that follows. All right, verse 1 kicks things off by setting the stage. This isn't just some friendly advice. Moses calls together the heads of all the tribes. Picture it. These powerful leaders are gathered in the desert, and Moses makes it crystal clear. This isn't my idea, folks. This is a direct command from the Lord. The stakes are high from the very first sentence. And here it is, verse 2, the absolute ironclad rule for a man. If he makes a vow, there are no takebacks, no excuses. His word is final. I want you to imagine his words literally leaving his mouth and forming a solid, glowing chain that locks around his own wrists. He is bound by what he said, period. There is no key. So, just as we're getting our heads around that absolute rule, the text immediately throws in the first major plot twist. It shifts from the individual to the family and introduces this whole new layer of authority. Verse 3 introduces our next character, a young woman still living at home with her dad. She makes a vow, a serious promise. And just like before, imagine that glowing chain forming from her words and locking around her wrists. But this time, there's someone else in the picture. Her father is standing right there beside her. Now, verses 4 and 5 lay out two paths, and the father is at the crossroads. On the day he hears about her promise, he has a choice. If he stays silent, his silence is his approval. You can just see the lock on that chain click shut, making the vow permanent. But if he speaks up and says no, his word has the power to shatter her vow into dust. Instantly. She's free. He holds the key. All right, so the next scenario adds even more complexity. We see that this power, this authority to either confirm or cancel a vow, can actually be handed off through marriage. So in verse 6, what if that young woman gets married while she's still under a vow she made back at her father's house? Picture her walking towards her husband, starting this new life, but she's still wearing that glowing chain from her past. The big question is, does that promise still count in her new home? And in verses 7 and 8, we get our answer. The authority is transferred. It's like the key was passed from her father to her husband. He now has the exact same power. On the day he finds out about it, if he's silent, the vow is confirmed. If he objects, he breaks the chain, and the Lord releases her from the promise. Okay, so you might be seeing a pattern here, right? It seems like a woman's promise is always conditional. But just when you think you've figured it all out, the law makes it very clear that this is not true for all women. This brings us to a really unique and powerful category. A group of women whose promises carry the exact same weight, the same finality as a man's. Verse 9 is a game changer. It says that for a widow or a divorced woman, basically anyone not directly under a father's or husband's authority, her word is her bond, no loopholes. Imagine her standing on her own. She makes a vow, that glowing chain locks around her wrists, and this time, it is absolutely unbreakable. She alone is responsible for it. Okay, so the text circles back one last time to the married woman, because there's one really important question left. What happens if she makes a new promise? Not one from her youth, but one she makes while she's already married. Verse 10 sets that scene perfectly. A wife living in her husband's house makes a new vow. The rules that come next are incredibly specific, especially about the timing of her husband's reaction. So, verses 11 and 12 bring back that core mechanic we've already seen. The moment the husband hears about this new vow, his reaction is everything. Silence means yes, it's binding. Speaking up against it means no, it's void. It's an immediate, powerful choice. But verses 13 and 14 add this super critical detail, a ticking clock. The husband has basically a 24-hour window from the moment he hears the vow to make his decision. And get this, doing nothing is doing something. If he lets that day pass in silence, he has actively confirmed her promise, the law clicks shut,
and now it's permanent.
And here it is, verse 15, the final twist in the tale. What if the husband messes up? What if he's silent on day 1, so the vow gets locked in, but then on day 2, he changes his mind and tries to cancel it? The law is clear. He can, but now he must bear her guilt. Imagine that glowing chain shattering late, but instead of the pieces just disappearing, they fly over and cling to him. The responsibility for the broken promise is now his.
The chapter wraps up by basically explaining its own purpose, showing us that this wasn't just a random list of rules, but a very specific legal framework for society.
Verse 16 just lays it all out. It says, "These are the rules for how promises work within the family unit, specifically between a father and his young daughter, and between a husband and his wife. It's a blueprint for who is ultimately responsible for the words people speak." So you see, this ancient law treated words as real, tangible things with serious consequences. It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? In our world where promises can feel so cheap, what is the true weight of our words? And when a promise is broken, who really bears the cost?